Hi, it's Chris with Implied Music. The past week or two, we've been talking about evaporating dissonance, dissonant tones, those spicy notes that, want to resolve, but we don't have to resolve them for whatever reason, artistry, idiom, something like that. So, how do you manage a dissonant chord that's still tonal, still part of a chord progression? I've got a really simple trick that I want to talk about today. Well, first of all, if this is the second or third video of mine that you've seen and you're not subscribed to the channel and you're getting something out of this work, now's the time to subscribe. We're building a channel here, a community of producers, songwriters, composers who are interested in learning more music theory, building their knowledge in order to support their own work. And I hope this is music theory for everyone. All right, so I'm not going to keep you in suspense. The trick, it's easy to say, is pretty simple. Build your chords over the third or the seventh. Don't build your chord over the root or the fifth. I'm going to show you some examples. So listen to these three examples. The first is idiomatically jazz, and this is kind of where the technique comes from. D minor 7, G13, C major 7. Resolves to C. And then what about a chord progression? F, C, G, A minor, a pop chord progression, but in strings. Sevenths in all those chords, color, right? And then arpeggiated with kind of a pumpy quality. Well, those arpeggios sound awesome with sevenths and added tones to give them extra color. And maybe we'll go back and take a look at those things. But first, I guess a little review. You'll remember that every chord has a root, third, fifth, and seventh. And if you wanted to continue up the stack of thirds, maybe there's a ninth and maybe even 11th. This program correctly identifies that as D minor 11th. Now, if I eliminate the root, the D from that chord, I get F, A, C, E, and maybe G. F, A, C, E, the computer thinks is F major 7. If I add the D in the bass, everything comes around again, right? But I'll tell you what, a lot of the time we have a bass in our arrangement. So let's go ahead and say that our chords can be built with not the root, but rather the third or the seventh in the bass. So this D minor 7 chord then could appear like this, or perhaps alternatively throwing away the fifth and adding the ninth on the top. Well, this is a beautiful sound. It can also be built with the seventh in the bass. Well, the seventh of D minor 7 is the C. So let's put the C in the bass. And I get the seventh, the ninth, the third, and the fifth. Again, it looks like an F major 7 chord to the computer, but we know that if we play this and add the D in the bass, we'll get a D sound. Now, what makes that beautiful is how tightly the voicings can move from chord to chord. In the example, the jazz example, we said D minor 7, G13, and of course the computer doesn't recognize this stuff very well at all, to C. I think I might have done it up here. D minor 7 over the 7th, that's the C. G13 over the 3rd, that's the B. C major 7th over the 7th, that's the B again. How smoothly those chords move. D minor 7 or D minor 9, G13, I don't have a root in my right hand. I have a third, a 13th, a 7th, and a 9th, and then we're going to resolve to C major 7. Well, I'm going to use that trick whenever I can to create beautiful, smooth voices. Now that you have sort of seen that, let's go back to that first example. And you can see how between the bass and the piano, we've got chords that are just spicy and just sit there. We don't have to resolve those dissonant tones. They can just be in there. And I think it has a lot to do with how smoothly the voices move from one to another. And you can see here, for instance, between these two chords, there's really only one note change. This C has dropped down to a B. And there's a kind of a feeling of resolution there, or at least of tendency. And we're always working with tendencies that way. Well, how does that work in the string example that I showed earlier? So here are our strings. And the chord progression is essentially an axis chord progression. I went F, C, G, A minor. But I know that I want 7th, so I went F major 7, C major 7, and maybe we'll even talk about some of the other things that might appear. G 7, maybe G9. I don't remember exactly what I did, but we'll look at it in a second. A minor 7, maybe A minor 9. So let's analyze what's happening in these notes. So as I go from F to C, I voiced it with the 3rd on the bottom and then the 7th on the bottom. Now, I stacked my voicings so that they were spread out. And so A, E, F, C is a beautiful open voicing of an F major 7 chord. And I don't have to do much, change 2 notes to get to this major 7 voicing of C. B is the 7th, E is the 3rd, G is the 5th, and of course the C on the top is the root. I have a root on the top and the bottom. And it's an elegant, smooth voicing. This sound right here, this 6th moving up against the bass moving down, very beautiful. I'm just going to say it. This tense note here, the E, was the major 7th of F, and it evaporated into the major 3rd of C. Let's see what's next. Now, the G7 chord, G, F, the 7th, B, the 3rd, D, the 5th, and A, the 9th. My sort of chord voicing is 7, 3, 5, 9. And you can see it has a similar sort of structure to what I had done earlier. It's an open voicing with the 7th on the bottom. We're going to an A minor chord next. If I really wanted to be persnickety with myself, I would take that note up to G, and you can see that way I'd have a root and then a 7th and then a 9th and then a 3rd and then a root on the top. See what you think about that sound. Let's go on to the last example, and this is a fun one. It's not exactly the kind of music I make, but I was curious, what if I kind of like did a simple sort of electro disco chord progression and pumped up the 7ths and just some other notes in here too. So as you can see, looking at the bass, the progression is F, C, B flat, E flat. And I've chosen some interesting tones. So for the F chord, the E is at the bottom, and I voiced it E, A, D, G. Well, that's the 7th, the 3rd, the, I don't know, I guess 6th we'd have to say because it's a major sound, and the 9th, 7, 3, 6, 9. It's an F6-9 chord. And as the chord changes from F to C, I don't have to change those notes at all. This stack of fourths, a very powerful voicing, transforms itself. Now the E is the 3rd of C. 3, 6, 9, 5. I don't have to change the chord voicing at all, but listen to the effect as the bass changes. It's great. Right? Sounds like a C chord. So much fun. Okay, moving on. The next chord is B flat major, the B flat in the bass. And I've got a voicing that goes the 3rd, the 7th, the root, and the 5th. And only one thing has to change to get me an E flat voicing that I can use. And that's, now I've just took that A down to G so that I get a 3rd of the E flat chord. Again, I'm trying to use the rule of parsimony, or as I like to think of it, I'm a lazy pianist, to move things as little as possible. Here's my original B flat chord, and God, it even recognizes it as B flat, and a simple change gives me the E flat chord that I'm going to use. The E flat chord is over the 7th, there's the 3rd, there's the 5th, and there's the 9th. This is a great sound too. B flat, E flat. Static dissonant chords need to be handled carefully. And probably the single most important sort of note to manage, or notes to manage within any chord or chord progression, are the 3rds and the 7ths. Knowing that, build your chords from the 3rds and the 7ths up. Well, I hope this has been useful. Like and subscribe and ding the bell. You'll be notified when I do my videos, and I'll see you next time.